Okay, welcome to the Montrose Forum on Wednesday morning, May 4th. And here we come. Hang on just a second. Thank you so much for coming. It's a great crowd. We have a great show for you. As we know, my name is Phoebe Benziger, and today we're kind of starting a new series, which may or may not work. It depends. We would like your feedback. But we thought it would be a fun thing to do to put a Made in Montrose, but not anything that's aligned with any national chain. It's just somebody that chose to come here, have their business, and do it and make it work. So we're starting with three businesses, three of my favorite, not necessarily, it's not inclusive to these, but we're starting with, we're starting with the one person that's here so far. So we may be ending with the one person that's here so far. But no, I think I have confirmation that they're on their way. So as you can tell here, we're going to have David Fishering talk about Storm King Distillery, Lynn McKay and Mike Schafer with Alpen Confections, and John KornBluh with Bluecorn Beeswax. Did anybody in the crowd take your homework and happen to go to Bluecorn Beeswax? Yeah. Pretty sweet, isn't it? Actually, all three of these businesses are very sweet, and I got you guys out of bed, I know. Yeah, I appreciate that. So anyway, I'm going to introduce each one of them. They're going to have about 10, 12 minutes to talk. And then we'll have like a panel kind of question and answer thing at the end, so you will have a chance to ask your questions. I will reiterate, as we do every time, if you have a question, raise your hand. We'll bring the microphone to you so that everybody can hear your question, and then they can answer it as they go forward. So we will start with David Fishering of Storm King Distillery. Storm King Distilling Company is the result of a family passion for finely crafted spirits and the dream to share this love with others. It's a family-owned, like I said, located at the northwest corner of West Main and Grand, which this is my words, nobody else's. It's almost like the gateway to that Colorado North. I mean, you turn there and you can just see change, you feel change. It's a lot of cool stuff happening right there. This distillery specializes in making handcrafted whiskey, gin, agave, and rum, which we have no samples of this morning. So don't get excited. Again, I said this is co-owned with his father, Greg. David is a graduate of Montrose High School in 2001. They opened the distillery in 2018. He's married to one of my absolute favorite people in Montrose, Sarah Fishering. She's a mover and a shaker, and if you don't know her, you need to get to know her because she is delightful. He met her on an exchange program across the pond and brought her back, so that was our bonus. They have two daughters, Amelia and Emma, who just did their own little, as a side note to them, they just did their own sunflowers for Ukraine, these two girls. Their idea, their choice, raising money for kids in Ukraine. So they're good parents, and they are dedicated to Montrose, and I'm going to stop talking because I will let David come up and tell us about Storm King Distillery.
All right, so you took 10 of my minutes, so I've only got 5. Be quick. All right. For those of you that don't know me, I'm David Fishering. For those of you that have been in Montrose for a while, yes, my last name has been around town. Many of you probably know my aunt, Nancy, or maybe my dad, Greg. But yeah, I've been around for a long time. As Phoebe said, I've got a family here. That's why we moved back to Montrose. I wish I could say the reason we moved back was to do the distillery, but that actually wasn't the case. That was kind of a happy byproduct. So we moved back here in 2014, and so why Montrose and that part of the story is that we wanted to start a family. We were living in Washington, D.C. I used to work for the Department of Defense. And when we decided to start a family, we both were from small towns. Obviously, I'm from Montrose. My wife is from a small town in England. And we both didn't want to raise kids in the big city, in Washington, D.C. in particular. Obviously, plenty of people do that, but based on our, upbringing, we didn't want to do that. So moving back to the UK wasn't something that we could do for a lot of reasons, at least not easily. And we knew that we could move back here, and that my parents were here, and that could help us out with everything we wanted to do. So we moved back here. I started actually helping my father with his business that he's had here for 35 years. And I basically told him when I moved here that I would help him out, but I wasn't moving back here to run a cell phone store. I had a really awesome job in DC. I wasn't going to give that up to run a cell phone store. So the agreement was that we'd come up with something really cool and fun and interesting to do, something that I could, take on and pass down to my kids someday. But before we came up with an idea, we bought the potato grower building and that property. And it was more a, what do we do with it now that we've bought it, than coming up with a great business plan first and then buying the property. So we kind of did things totally backwards. Anyway, so I had a passion for whiskey in that I liked drinking it a lot. That started out when I lived in DC. We went on a trip to the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky. That same year, we went to Scotland. So in 1 year, I went to the two meccas of whiskey making on earth, right? On my 2-hour commute back and forth in DC, I would sit there every day and think, why am I doing this? I want to make whiskey for a living. And at the time I thought, okay, well, this was something I would do when I'm 65, I'll retire, and I'll set up a little distillery, and we'll have some fun. Well, we moved to Montrose, we bought this property, and all of a sudden, this is something that I can do now. So we did. I bought a little still that is in the distillery now, if you've ever been there, a little copper still. We messed around in the garage, and I don't know, 6 months later, we figured, well, yeah, we can do this. Let's upgrade to a real distillery. And so we did. And we're here now. For us, like I said, the decision to do this in Montrose was more the fact that we were already living here. It was financially feasible to do here. The costs of setting this all up anywhere else would have been, at the time, too much. Obviously now the prices of everything have skyrocketed, so if we had started today, it would have been pretty hard to do, I think. But for me, it's more, when I walked in here, it was pretty interesting to see that. I've never been in this room before. The posters with the Be Our Community's Future. For us and for me personally, that's what this is all about. I love it here. That's why we moved back here. But as Phoebe said, my wife's really involved in the community. She's more famous than I am, and she's better at most of what she does than I am at what I do. And everybody likes her, and she's more funny and everything else. So I lucked out, and so did the community. But for me, on the planning commission, my wife's the president of the school board. I'm involved with other community stuff on the business side of things. I work a lot with the city, and the reason for Montrose, why are we here doing this at Montrose? It's because you can do all those things at Montrose. It's really hard to get involved in your community in Washington, D.C., or Denver, or I'd even say Grand Junction. The size of those cities makes it, you kind of have to dedicate yourself to doing, whether it's volunteer work or, being a city council person or whatever. Where in Montrose, you can do other things and also do that stuff. You can be a part of the community and still do, and still own a business or whatever. But for us, as a family, being involved is super important because we own a business. You own a business here, you need to be involved in the community. And so for us, that is the main reason why we're doing what we're doing here. On our, Phoebe asked me to talk a little bit about our products and things. If any of you have not seen one of my liquor bottles, I did think about bringing whiskey for 8 o'clock in the morning, but figured that might not be a smart move for all of us here that need to go back and work. But on our liquor bottle, it doesn't matter which one it is, they all say Montrose, Colorado, I think 3 times on the label. So it's very obvious for anyone that you're not from here, one, where it's made, Two, that obviously whoever's making it is pretty proud of the fact that they're from Montrose and that it's being made in Montrose, which I think is pretty cool. Some of our, well, most of our stuff has won awards, which again, you know, you have an award and then you get it and it says, oh, made in Montrose. For me, the thing I'm most proud of is our whiskey, obviously, and it's won double gold medals, which is the best you can get at a bunch of competitions. And again, you know, when those guys are judging it, they, you know, after the blind judging, they go and see what it is they just judged, and they get to see this bottle that says Montrose, Colorado 3 times on there. And for most of them, they probably never heard of where we are, so it's a good thing for the community there as well. For our business, and actually, you know, the other 2 businesses that are here today, we've all designed our, what is primarily a manufacturing business, to have an element that is retail focused, and therefore, obviously, for you guys here in the community, that's great. You guys get to be our regulars, but for tourists, it's a huge deal to be able to come through Montrose and see that, oh wow, you know, that this is some stuff that's actually being made here. In every instance, we're all the people that they're working every day. You know, most people don't see me if they're there at the distillery at night having cocktails, and that's because I've been there since 6 o'clock in the morning making whiskey. And so I need to get home to see my kids that are doing sunflowers for Ukraine or whatever crazy thing they're thinking of next. But yeah, I don't know if my time's up yet. Oh gosh, I'm not even close. Yeah, so I guess I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things that we're doing. It's all distillery related. So we own the potato grower building, and you know that again, that building is I don't know, it's not the most famous building in Montrose, but I think it's one of the most iconic buildings in town. And growing up, you know, you drive by that part of Main Street coming in from Spring Creek, and it was just like the dilapidated corner. And you know, we're trying to make it so it's not that. So far, we've been successful. And the next stage is turning that building into something useful again, like it was at the turn of the century. And so we're going to be moving kind of our retail stuff over to that building, ideally. And then the distillery will be 100% manufacturing. But so we'll have a whole little compound there of manufacturing and retail. That building, and again, being part of the community, it was really important for us to do a historic preservation project with that building. We could have gone in there and for a lot less money, tore it down and built something that was, you know, a steel superstructure or something. That wasn't the right thing to do. And so we've gone about this. We've got it, the building's listed at every level of government, from the city all the way up to the national, to the federal government, as a historic building, which puts, you know, kind of handcuffs us in some ways, but it protects the building and it makes sure that we as business or as property owners treat it the way it needs to be treated to preserve it for the community, which is a pretty cool thing. And again, you know, that just goes back to what our goal is as a family and as business owners here in Montrose, is to just make sure that we're doing our part to kind of secure what we see as our community's future. And with that, I mean, without going into like a whole thing of how you make whiskey and how much I love it, that's probably all I've got to say about why we're here.
All right, that's our start. So as you can tell, you can now see why I was so excited about today's presentation. So we're going to jump, because Lynn and Mike actually did bring some samples from Alpen Confections. So we're going to jump to John KornBluh with Bluecorn Beeswax. The first time I met John was on the Planning Commission, where he, on Zoom, they bought the old Furniture Connection store down on Main Street, and they moved up here to Montrose, which we're lucky about, out of necessity and need. The demand for their product was so great that they were outgrowing where they were in Ridgeway. Is that correct? That is correct. And he's got an amazing story. He makes an amazing product, and I'm not going to take his time like I did yours, David. So you guys welcome John KornBluh.
I was hoping you'd take a little more time. to know a few folks in Montrose. My name is John KornBluh.
John, will you use the mic?
I will use the mic. Except, this is an H. John KornBluh. But no worries on that. Let's see, where do I start? You were really good at this. Well done. I'll start with a little bit about me. I've lived in the San Juan mountain region for about 31 years. I moved to Telluride in 1991 to ski, and I skied a lot, and I worked very little. And the candles came out of that scenario. I was squatting in a 10 by 10 shack just outside of Telluride in 1991, and essentially living in the woods, which a lot of us did back then. I had a wood stove, I had a outhouse out the back, and I had a double burner propane stove. My first winter there, I had no electricity. My second winter there, I was able to run an extension cord about 50 feet through a culvert to a friend's property, but that's not as romantic a part of the story. So the first winter I was in the cabin, I was burning kerosene lanterns for fuel, and they were giving me headaches. And my buddy Baker Steve, who got his name from being a baker at the Telluride Bakery, said that he would bring down his beeswax candle setup. I had no idea what that entailed. And the next day he comes in with 2 5-gallon galvanized buckets, a bunch of crude beeswax, and some wick. And we go about melting wax on this double burner stove. He had these rudimentary racks which held 8 candles each. We had 5 of them, and we went about dipping candles all night long. There was only room for one of us to stand in the cabin at a time. That was the person dipping, and so the other person sat on the bed with the 3 dogs. Cleanliness was not a priority in those days. And so at the end of our session, it was like 3 in the morning. We had hundreds of these gorgeous beeswax taper candles. And a taper candle, if you don't know it, is the classic dinner taper. It's a candle that's been dipped for thousands of years, in much the same way that we do it now. And so we set about into the community the next day, and very quickly, within hours, sold everything we had to our other hippie friends that were living in the woods, to the health food store, and the light went off for me. Not only did I love the raw material, not only did I love the process, but I loved the commerce aspect of it. And that winter, I set up shop. I think I dipped a few times through the year, and I set up shop at the Christmas Crafts Fair in Telluride, made like $1,200 in a day, and it was all over for me. And so that was 1991. Let's see, that was 31 years ago, give or take. And I set about doing candles right from there. I moved to Rico in 1994, bought an old house that was built in 1895, and spent the next 15 years renovating that house and building Bluecorn Beeswax. By the way, Bluecorn was a nickname. I was, what little work I did at Hunga's Lotus Petal. And Hunga ran an amazing Pan-Asian restaurant in Telluride for also over 30 years. And I was waiting tables there, and she would call me Bluecorn as a nickname. And the alliteration of Bluecorn and Beeswax just was too easy and right in front of me, so I went with it. Bluecorn Beeswax was the name. In the early days, I worked craft shows. all over Colorado, New Mexico. I loaded my van up, go sleep in the park where I would sell the next day, and I really kind of cut my teeth on the marketplace, develop my product line, things like that. I did dabble in the early days with wholesale trade shows. I went to New York, I went to San Francisco, had some success, but I really didn't like it as a lifestyle. I liked being home, I liked being in the mountains, I liked playing, and the quality of my life was always a priority in my professional life. And so I kind of got off the road and I started our first website in 1996. And so that makes me, I think, a pioneer of internet candle sales, let alone maybe just internet sales. I think beeswaxcandles.com that I bought in 96 was like my 4th or 5th choice because I knew nothing. I did buy a whole bunch of URLs and different websites, and it turned out that that was clearly the right one. So I went about building a website and selling direct to consumer. And I was living in Rico, and we moved from the back of our house, cabin, shack in Rico to numbers of places on the main street. The last place we were in Rico was the Masonic Lodge, this beautiful old brick building. And one of the exciting parts of this business has been making all these incredible buildings home. And so when we were in Ridgeway, I had been making candles in Ridgeway for 13 years, and we were running out of space in a big way. Things were constrained, business was growing. The pandemic happened to be really great for our business because we were a direct-to-consumer online business with lots of inventory already established at Amazon. And so when COVID shut us down, we had 3 or 4 months of inventory sitting at Amazon, and we were able to sell that while we couldn't manufacture. And so we did really well during that time, thankfully. And the writing was on the wall. And at the same time, I was exploring, after close to 30 years of running Bluecorn, I was exploring selling the business. I didn't quite know why. I was kind of interested in shaking it up. And what I learned was that getting the business ready for sale is a really cathartic process. It's good for your business, first of all. You get lean, you get mean, you find out where the waste is. And you also put yourself out there to the world. And what ended up showing up to me that worked for me and clearly for others was capital investment in me and the business, not necessarily someone to take over the business. I realized that I still had a lot of energy for running the business, and so I finally found partnership with 2 investors out of Florida. They purchased a majority share of Bluecorn in December of 2020, and with their help, we bought a building, the old Furniture Connection building in Montrose. We spent the year renovating it. Because of COVID slowdown and waiting for materials, you all got to see the open facade for way longer than we planned. We really just wanted to build up the anticipation in the community. What the heck is that going to be? And really, do they need 26,000 square feet for candles? I don't get it. I heard it all, I enjoyed it all. And the vision was that I was going to be the CEO and minority owner and blow this thing up. And that's what's going on. So come to present day, once we found the location, which was not easy, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff available in Montrose. that suited our needs. And with John's help, this is actually a funny story. You know, you think of John as a talented realtor, but. So here we are cruising around Montrose one day looking for facilities to put Bluecorn in. We found nothing. We finally pull back into his office and he's like, you know, John, I just don't know if there's much for you. And I look up and I'm like, well, what about that building? He's like, oh, you think you might be interested in the Furniture Connection building? I said, yeah. So we walk in there and it happened very quickly from there. Ed was very kind and compassionate and open and loved the idea of bringing Bluecorn into what was essentially his baby for so many years. And so Ed and I struck it, you know, had a great rapport right out of the gate. And once we found that we had a location with that type of traffic, I was able to execute a long time vision. And that is what Bluecorn is now. And that is a coffee, cafe, retail space, a large, open, light space that is very welcoming of community. And if you go in there, you'll see a lot of people set up in all corners of Bluecorn working. There are real estate meetings, there's construction meetings, there's plans out on our community tables. There are people in the upper corner on the stage with headphones doing whatever they do. And it feels really good to me to have people in there every day working. And we're getting wonderful feedback about how welcoming a space it is, and the fact that we've made such a large space feel intimate. And if you haven't been in there, the cornerstone of the construction is a 55-foot long glass wall where you can see the candles being made. And so the goal now that I've got the retail open, we're gonna be doing live music, we're gonna be getting a liquor license, we're gonna be doing community candle making, and hopefully combining liquor and candle making. I know for a fact. It's an awesome combination. And we do plan on working with David, not only to buy his product, but hopefully to develop our bar menu. And so there's lots of exciting things coming. And then on the flip side, my goal is to grow the business. And because beeswax is such a scarce raw material, especially these days since colony collapse and the onset of industrial agriculture and pesticides have been so damaging to bee populations, we're having a hard time finding enough beeswax. And the price is just going through the roof. And so we are diversifying our offering to other non-toxic candle waxes like coconut wax. And so right now I'm developing a line of fragrance-forward coconut wax-based candles that we will be wholesaling and doing direct-to-consumer as well, and looking for all, you know, divergent marketplaces across the web, traditional wholesale marketplaces, as well as direct-to-consumer fundraising efforts. We see a big niche for that. So that's the deal. I've got about 1 minute. A little bit about me. I'm a father of 2 boys and a husband. We live in Ridgway, Colorado. My eldest boy, Jonah, just graduated from Ridgway High School last year and a freshman at San Diego State. My youngest boy, Ruben, is graduating this year and heading to Montana State to study film production. And both of them were part of a state title winning soccer team in Ridgway that I coached in 2019. It's something that we're very proud of, and I slide it into any presentation that I And like David, I really value community service. And I see business and creating jobs and creating businesses as community service, partly. And I think for my entire adult life, I've been in service to others, and I think that's where the richness comes from. I was in Rico on the town board for 12 years. I've been planning commission. I've been coaching soccer for 25 years. And I think that being of service to others gets us out of our own way and out of our own head and out of our own problems. And that's my philosophical offering for the day. So, thank you. Oh, no worries. People have butchered my name for years, and I love it.
You should have a name like Phoebe Binsberg. So yeah, how lucky are we, you guys? So the two have been great, and the third one I promise you're gonna love our next two presenters, Alpen Confectioners, Lynn McKay and Mike Schafer. They opened Alpen Confections in February of 2021. They're down on Grand Avenue, kind of catty corner where David is with the Distillery. And ever since they opened, they've been super duper busy. I mean, crazy busy. They met at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte, but the interesting thing that you'll find, and I found, is Lynn grew up here in western Colorado, and he has a lot of family ties still here in western Colorado. Is that correct? Mike grew up in upstate New York and on the East Coast. And one really interesting thing is Lynn's parents once owned the little convenience store at the base of the Grand Canyon as you turn off the Highway 50 and go up that little store right there, that you all stop and get something quickly because you're about to head up. That's a great place.
Yes.
See? Here we go. We're doing that whole geography thing, hooking it all together. But anyway, we, again, if you haven't been, and they did bring a sample that I'll let them do at the end of there, but they actually do combine the whiskey with the chocolate. So they found a way to do it. And they're just something this week I saw. Pardon me? Everybody's gonna, they are gonna, yeah. So I would like to invite you both up to do this. We have another microphone you can use and just play off with each other. So this is Mike right here, and this is Lynn. And please welcome them to the forum. This is their first time.
Thank you for having us. We are Alpen Confections. My name is Mike Schafer. This is my husband, Lynn McKay. As Phoebe mentioned, Betty and Carl Rupp were a big part of us existing as confectioners and pastry chefs. They actually helped us start our dream. We met in North Carolina. We worked at UNC Charlotte as administrators for 11 years together and hated it. I was the office manager. He hired all of the staff and professors. And after 11 years, we just needed to go, and we're very fortunate. We were playing Frisbee on our lunch break. Lynn broke his wrist and was at home for 6 weeks and saw a chocolate confectioner in Spain. Light bulb went off, and he called me and said, "What do you think about chocolate?" And so we spent a few months investigating and really found a passion. So we decided to train professionally for a couple of years at the Calibo Academy for Chocolate in Montreal and Chicago. And after 2 years, we decided to cash our 401ks in like you do at 35 years old and start our chocolate business. And in North Carolina, we were doing really well. We actually had to start a second commercial kitchen rental business to help facilitate our chocolate business, wherein we rented our space to other small food businesses to help pay our bills. It turned out to be really great for us. We found a really good voice in the community for food businesses and learned a lot. We had a lot of ups and downs. We found ourselves in an artisanal market in downtown Charlotte, North Carolina, doing really well. Unfortunately, Lynn had some health issues about 5 years in, so we had to shut our business down, and we're very fortunate that Betty invited us out here to recover. And that was about 5 years ago, and as Phoebe mentioned, we were able to get back to chocolate last year, right before COVID hit. So actually 2 years ago. So yeah, it's been really wonderful. We've done really well with chocolate when we first started. We mainly wholesaled. We worked with Dean and DeLuca, Le Meridien Hotel Chain, Thompson Hotel, Miami South Beach. We were 2015's Best North Carolina Sweet and Food Network magazine for a bee pollen praline that we did. So just really, really fortunate in that regard. And once we made the decision to move out to Montrose, as Phoebe mentioned again, we had a lot of family support. Lynn's family is in Junction, Glenwood, Crested Butte, all over the western slope. So it was kind of a no-brainer, and we were, over the city. We wanted to have a change of pace, and really thought that Montrose would be a great place to restart. It's been fantastic. Ever since we opened, we've been extremely busy. We found ourselves out of stock. We were able to buy equipment to catch up, and then more word of mouth got around town. And now we're at the point where we are going to be moving to the Trattoria di Sofia Italian restaurant space on Townsend and First, thanks to John Renfro. We appreciate him a great deal. We're very excited. We're currently in the planning process. And right now we are mainly doing chocolate. We're traditionally French trained in chocolate and pastry. So once we move into our new space, we're excited to break into the pastry game, doing tarts, entremet, little petit gâteaux, macaron, drinking chocolate flights, lots of fun stuff. Lynn's going to put out some bonbon samples for you. A bonbon is a molded chocolate. Lynn will go into more of this, but we've got several different flavors. The first one is a wheat whiskey vanilla milk chocolate ganache, and we are very fortunate to have Storm King Distillery's exceptional spirits to use for our product. We also use David's silver rum for our orange rum dark chocolate ganache. But we have our wheat whiskey milk chocolate vanilla, a raspberry milk chocolate caramel, and a mocha milk chocolate caramel where we use Cimarron Roasters chimney rock blend of coffee. And one of the things we really enjoy about Montrose is there's all of these wonderful products that we can use as local ingredients for our product when we make them. So I'm very excited. I will bring these guys around. I'm hoping we have enough. There's a lot of people here, so we'll see. But I'm going to hand it over to Lynn. He can maybe give you a little bit of information in how we make these, kind of where we're planning on going with the business. And I'll put some gloves on and be right around.
All right, thank you guys for having us today. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about chocolate. We are echoing things that David and John said, that things are very difficult to find, and chocolate's getting more expensive by the day. Unfortunately, the cacao tree only grows 20 degrees north and 20 degrees south of the equator in very humid, rich soil conditions in the shade. So you can imagine how quickly those environments are disappearing. We only use chocolate from a company called Valrhona, and the other one is Cacao Berry. We choose those two companies because one of them is bee certified and the other one is applying for it. So these are companies that are giving back to the community and to the environment and everywhere around the world that they're getting chocolate. We only use single origin chocolates, so they come from one farm or one plantation. Almost always that farm or plantation is owned by the people in the community and not the chocolate company itself. So we have one chocolate available now, not one that's being passed out, but it's called a Lanka, and it's from Peru. It was a heritage bean that was found growing wild in the mountains of Peru. And Valrhona, I think it was actually Alan Repair and his cohort that helped this happen. But Valrhona now has built a large plantation for the people. They still own the property and they're cultivating the beans themselves. So we're really proud to work with companies that are actually doing it right and not just in really bad situations. Unfortunately, again, 20 degrees north and south of the equator often means that the politics, the economy, and how the people live are much depressed compared to where we are. A lot of chocolate makers, or chocolate farmers rather, haven't ever had chocolate in its form that we have it. It's not made there, they ferment the beans, but they don't actually get to enjoy the chocolate product itself, which is very odd. So yeah, I tell you a little bit about the chemistry of what chocolate is and how we get it in that form. I was a chemistry major, and I also have a degree in French and German, and I didn't like doing anything with either of those degrees. I learned that I wasn't supposed to be in the lab by myself all day. I get bored super quick. And teaching languages was fun, but I had done it for so long that I wasn't interested anymore. I found that at the university level, all of the kids coming in are kind of the same person for a long time. And it's just like a revolving door of the same kids always. Plus, mathematicians aren't the nicest people to work for. When we found chocolate and Mike said that I had broken my arm, I had to sit in my arm in traction for a month. Otherwise, I would have had pins and then I would have lost mobility. So I was watching this program. It was on a chocolate confectioner in Barcelona where I had lived for a short period of time. His name is Enrique Rivera. He makes these really beautiful giant chocolate eggs. And then he and his friend take the eggs out into the sun just so they get the tiniest little tear at the top, and then they rush them inside and they paint them with an iridescent color. And something just clicked for me. I was then going to be able to take my chemistry, take my French, and put them together in something that I absolutely love to do. Our chocolate manufacturing facility is really nothing more than a lab, but it's a lab with delicious things. And it's a lab where I can't break stuff very often, which is what happened. So chocolate is much like just a material as much as it is a food stuff. It exists in a couple of states. It can either be a liquid or it can be a solid. Chocolate has what's called a polymorph crystalline structure. So there are 5 possible fat crystalline structures in chocolate, or 6 rather, and you only want to propagate one, the beta 5 crystal. So in order for us to make what you see today, we have solid chocolate that comes from the company. We have to melt that chocolate down to 50 degrees Celsius. Then we drop the temperature to a very specific 34 degrees Celsius, and that's when we can seed the chocolate with beta 5 crystals and eventually end up with a solid chocolate again. All of these processes have like maybe 1 or 0.5 degrees Celsius where the product will either work or it won't, and there's no going back. So you see the colors that are applied to the form. That's just a fat dispersible food colorant, and we disperse it in cocoa butter. You can crystallize cocoa butter just like chocolate. So we first have to crystallize the color, and then we apply it to the mold in various ways. We have a low pressure spray gun, just like you would to paint an automobile. Sometimes we blow things in there. The whiskey ones, we actually took a gold color and suspended it in vodka, and then applied it to the mold with a paintbrush. And then the vodka evaporates and leaves you with that really beautiful marbling pattern. So after the color is done, we can then, we have to wait a little while, but then we can crystallize chocolate. We pump chocolate into the form, put it on a vibrating table, flip it over, and then we have a cavity. Once that chocolate completely dries, we can then make whatever goes inside, and then that has to drop to a temperature where we can pipe it in, and it will lay flat, but it won't actually melt the chocolate. So again, you're at like a degree of difference, so our environment is really important to us. What else can I tell you about chocolate? So, it's much less interesting than I think people think. It is very much like a lab. We enjoy it a great deal. It's very meticulous. When we were at our jobs in North Carolina, we realized that we had a bent for difficult and meticulous things, and chocolate really facilitates that for us. Montrose has just been the absolute best community. I can echo what David was saying with DC. In Charlotte, we didn't matter to anyone. We didn't matter to the local government. We didn't matter to, we're too small. They're looking for Fortune 500 companies that employ thousands of people. So it's been super nice in Montrose to both attract the attention of the people in local government, but also the help that they offer and how often they come by to offer that help. It's been, and then just, not living in the city and sitting in traffic for 45 minutes, and it's been such a great thing to move back here. When I left, I think Gibson's was still here. There was no Walmart. I think Townsend ended right about where the health department was. So I wasn't sure that Montrose was going to be the place. Like David, we came back and I saw how much it had changed and all of the great things that were going on. We actually visited David's distillery a couple times. So we decided to open up chocolate again. And of course, Mike said that we did it during COVID. So when we were inspected, we were allowed to carve out a small little retail area. I thought we would just use that retail area for a short period of time until the hotels in Telluride and Crested Butte opened back up. But to our surprise, Montrose has been so excited to have us, and we are super busy all the time. Almost all local people. We do get some tourists and a few people that come down from Telluride or whatever. But it's really just been the people of Montrose that have supported us, and it's just been incredible. We can't even take wholesale clients. We don't really do events, maybe one a month, because it's all that we can handle. So we're very excited to move into our new facility. It will allow us to have a chocolate tempering machine that does a great deal of the work for us. It will also allow us to carry a minimum 10 times the amount of product that we currently carry. Yeah, it's, how much more time do I have? I am the least coherent person at this time of the morning, by the way. I used to teach ESL to like 6-year-olds, and man, their energy level at that time of the day and mine did not match at all. This is why our business is open from 12 to 6. Because I can guarantee that I'll be coherent at noon. Yeah.
So we also just plans for growth. We'd love to do wine and chocolate nights. We'd love to have interns and stages to come and learn about chocolate. One of our big dreams is to actually have a greenhouse with a growing cacao tree so people can see where chocolate comes from. It's really an amazing fruit that most people don't really understand the process and how it grows. And education and sustainability is very important. And we really want to just be here in the community and share our craft and make people happy with the things that we make. And so far, I think we're doing a good job at it. It's been really nice to be so well received by the town, and it gives us more, drive, and really, we've got big plans. So it's exciting to be here, and I'm an East Coast boy, and when we first came out to visit Betty and Carl, I kind of looked, we were up at the canyon and I could see the actual curvature of the planet. On the East Coast there's so many trees, you're kind of insulated, and here it gave me very much a sense of perspective and just where I want to be. And so I'm very excited and thankful for the opportunity and the fact that we were able to start over here in Montrose. So, yeah.
I think we're at 15 minutes now.
Perfect.
Everybody got one. I think this group looks pretty happy. Can you say one thing?
I know John, he can't say one thing.
I'm just gonna say one thing. I'm interrupting here, I'm sorry. With regards to these guys and the other ones that are going through, these guys have worked really well with the city, Region 10. I don't think you guys realize the community of people around in order to kind of make this type of stuff happen. The community's changing quite a bit to have the distillery, have the candle guy, have the chocolate guy, which in my mind is really, really cool. But that happens because of you guys, right? We have a really awesome city. Region 10 does great. The county does phenomenal. And I just want to highlight that for you guys here. So I hope that continues to grow. You need to help the city aspects so that they can keep that planning on course and on track. But I wanted to make sure that was available for you guys and you knew that. Thanks.
Who's this guy? He's the guy that now John is going to ask. They're going to move into your building, so don't, yeah. be wiping out, because he's gonna take over your building. So we have a couple minutes for questions. So if you have a question, I'd like for you to raise your hand. And I'll start here, and we'll work around.
How many people do each of you employ, and what percent come from local?
John, do you want to just?
Who do you want to answer that question?
All three.
So right now, I would love to hire some more people, but we don't have enough space. We will start hiring fairly soon. We need a front of the house manager. This is gonna be our first time with sit-down service, so we're really excited about that. And we look forward to probably employing about 4 people, definitely from Montrose. But as Mike mentioned, we would like to use what's called a stage. We would like to actually provide that to people that are in culinary school now that don't, in the Western Slope, they don't really have a place to go to learn what we do with chocolate and what we do with pastry. So we really want to bring those people in and show them, or provide a really awesome environment for them to do that.
All right, I employ 3 people right now. It's all on my retail side of the business, so our tasting room, they're my 3 bartenders. We actually hired one the month after everything got shut down in 2020, because we knew that even though we were shut down, that the rules were going to come out that we could be open, just not inside, and we actually had our best year at that point, despite COVID. So yeah, 3 people now. I'm the only person that does our manufacturing, because I don't trust anybody. So it's going to be a while before I can hire anybody on the manufacturing side, but eventually, if I don't want to be there 24/7, I'm going to have to do that, which is, it's a great thing. You know, increasing our people in town that are doing manufacturing is always good. And also, just because these guys mentioned it, John also helped us buy our property. So I guess this whole thing could be made in Montrose, or just the John Renfro show.
Bluecorn employs 32 people right now. When we left Ridgeway, that number was at 22, and so we've hired 10 more people. And all of those folks come from Montrose, except for one person commutes from Olathe, and one person commutes from Ridgeway.
Several years ago, there was a very successful distillery in Cedar Ridge. And they basically packed up shop, and I think they moved to the Front Range because they were so far away from their raw materials and also from their market. I'd like to, if you could address some of the problems that you're having getting raw materials and you know, shipping your products out, you know, where you can scale up, and also the problem of hiring employees with the lack of affordable housing.
Yes, they're all problems. They're challenges, they're not problems. So, supply chain stuff, right now all of our grain comes from Family Farm in Burlington, Colorado. For our whiskey, all of our grains, Colorado grain. That was super important to us. It was a little less important that it came directly from, you know, our backyard. And the reason for that is for the quality of spirit that I'm trying to make. We don't have the facilities here, and there aren't people growing grain, cleaning grain, milling grain at the level that I need it to do what I'm doing. My cousin runs half the corn operation in Delta with his business, or his dad's business that he took over. So like access to corn isn't an issue. The problem is that a lot of that corn isn't suitable for distilling. So I get all my grain from the Front Range, and there are days when, yeah, there's a snowstorm and it's delayed by a day or 2. That doesn't really impact me. For me, it's mostly our packaging material. Most of that stuff is or was made in China. Now it's made in Taiwan. And so getting that stuff, the lead times are super long. I've got 2 products right now that are delayed or have been delayed right up to launch day because I haven't had bar tops, the little caps that go on the top of my bottle. I had to source it from 3 different suppliers to get enough to get my product out. So We have that, and then, we only have a couple of employees, but I know from the manufacturing side, I would love to be able to steal a distiller or assistant distiller from the Front Range, where they have 75 distilleries to choose from, people that already have this experience. There's nowhere for them to live here. So yes, it is a challenge, but I know, my position on the planning commission, there are things in the works. The city's making moves to get more affordable housing here in Montrose. So from our perspective, I think that's where we're at. I don't know if you guys have anything to say about sourcing raw materials and issues.
We're fortunate. We, funnily enough, can get the highest quality chocolate in the world from Altamira Foods out of Denver. They distribute to us. But some of our chocolates have gone out of stock, but we are able to find other chocolates that we can use. And if for whatever reason chocolate goes away, we can always adapt and switch gears to baked goods, pastries, that sort of thing. Shipping, on the other hand, has turned into a kind of a crazy situation for us. For chocolate, we require 2-day shipping in an insulated box with an ice pack. We've got it all buttoned up, and we currently charge $20 for shipping and handling for every order. But we found lately that our shipper, UPS, has been doing dynamic shipping rates. And so they're constantly changing. And so we've just adjusted to where if somebody wants to ship, we'll just ask for their information and process the shipment and ask them if they want to pay $45 to ship 6 pieces of chocolate to Florida. That's just what you have to do. I think a lot of small business is adapting and finding solutions to the challenges that we're currently facing.
And so we also use a lot of local ingredients, but fortunately we don't use it at the volume that David does. When we make a ganache or something, we might use a pound of coffee from Cimarron Roasters. And so we can continue to source things from the local community and shift as the seasons go. We're hoping to buy a very large freeze drying machine so that we can take advantage of all of the fresh fruit and things that we can use from the Grand Valley and the Western Slope all through the year instead of just when it's available.
Okay, so John, do you want to add anything or?
No, I'm
finish
good.
up? You're good? You actually talked about it with the beeswax and how that's not, and you're on Amazon.com still, correct?
We are on Amazon, and actually we're working very hard to diversify our sales platforms away from Amazon, because it's never good to have all your eggs in one basket, and so we're working very hard, successfully, at redirecting our sales to our own website. Like I said, creating new dynamic ways of selling things. Fundraising is hot for me right now. I think diversification in your supply chain, redundancy in your supply chain, and when it comes to employees, I think you have to make your workplace special, because it's a very competitive marketplace, it's a very competitive workspace, and it has to be an appealing place to spend your day, because we all spend so much of our day at work.
And let me just say, when Lynn and Mike need help, they call in Aunt Betty. That I know. Like, who's your help? Oh, Aunt Betty comes in. So you guys, give them a round of